shall I say, is the question.
Whatever you want.
Right there.
There's room right here,
Okay,
too.
if you guys are going to drum, go ahead and do a groove instead of a cacophony. And don't get too loud because it will blast out the microphone. No, it's actually because it's so much time. It's over.
You guys talk is drum circles. Frank and Sight play drum.
Hi there, and welcome to our monthly RPG Research live broadcast, especially for our Patreon supporters. That's a little bit of the warm-up groove for one of our projects coming this November 4th?
Yes.
Saturday from 1 to
Saturday,
3
November
p.m. at the indieairradio.com concert hall up on the South Hill in Spokane. We are teaching basic drum circle facilitation techniques to up to 35 people. This is a fundraiser for the RPG trailer. And so far we've got about 7 people signed up so far. Hopefully more will keep signing up, get those numbers up. And it's for all ages and all levels, 6 to 96. Beginners, intermediate, advanced, because even if you're an advanced drummer, that doesn't necessarily mean you know drum circle facilitation techniques. Now, if you're an experienced drum circle facilitator, okay, it's an introductory workshop. But whatever your level of drumming is, everybody's welcome. We can supply the drums. We have enough drums and percussion instruments for about 50 people, and we have a concert hall capacity of 35. So we got that covered. But if you have your own drum that you want to practice with, you are most welcome to bring your own drum. Now, of course, many of you are not in the Spokane area, are going to be in the Spokane area during this time, and so we're sorry you won't be able to attend. But we're just letting you know this is one of the many programs we do. But why do we use drums when we're supposed to be about role-playing game research and programs and implementation and populations and such? Where the heck do drums come into this? You guys want to talk a little bit about that? We were just talking about that tonight's meeting, and I was kind of grilling you guys a little.
One use is that it sets the tempo. So you're going to come in to this great big battle.
So literally and figuratively.
Yeah. So then you get all amped up playing your drum.
So it kind of sets the mood for whatever it is, like if you're going to go do a LARP or get into a battle, get everybody stoked up and energized. That's one use. Yep, when we've used it for summoning for the Muscular Dystrophy Association LARP, things like that. We bring them in, we get them all stoked up and energized, and send them off to battle. That's one useful.
Or quest.
Yeah, quest, yes. That's one useful. How does it? What else?
It also is a great exercise in cooperative. Everybody's just cooperatively achieving their goals. Learning to work together, anticipating people's moves. So it really helps with just the whole group dynamic if you're going to be gaming also. It's a great exercise in it.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. John?
Beyond just being a quick bonding exercise, it has parallels with the role-playing games. The facilitator is the dungeon master. The drummers are the players in the game.
Sometimes literally.
And
Yes.
with a cooperative quest of making good sounds as opposed to a cacophony. And then you can get into your flow state, you get into your groove where it becomes instinctive and everybody's working together without having to have a verbal communication.
Yep. And how does it tie in with like a game master and such?
Well, as I was saying, the facilitator of the drumming circle is like the game master. He directs things, he sets the mood, and then the players get to build upon and help write the song or stories.
And more fundamentally, they're paying attention and following directions. They're focusing on the activity at hand rather than whatever's going on in their life for the week or the day or whatever, and whatever stresses they're having. It kind of helps them start to go from broad attention to more focused attention. And paying attention to the facilitator, paying attention to the game master. It's kind of a little microcosm of the role-playing game experience in a very short snapshot in a little drum circle. And so kind of and of course it's an icebreaker, right? You can bring in all these people who don't know each other and bang on them bongos like a chimp fest. That ain't working. That's the way you do it.
And we were talking earlier about using it as part of the game, either part of the storytelling, because in Adventures in Middle-earth, there are elements where we gather around and we tell stories and blow smoke rings and riddles and play instruments. Then you can literally do that as well as just talk about it. But also when people's energy levels are need refocusing, or when people's focus on the game itself is starting to spread, you can use this as something to bring everybody back together again.
Yep.
Take a 15-minute break here to bang some drums.
Yep. So we've used it to begin games and to end games, to bring people in, to set a mood, to chill them out after a lot of excitement, especially kids, kind of wind them down after all that adrenaline. But we also talked about how it can be used in the middle of the game. So, for example, in Eves of Mirkwood, which we've been using a lot lately in a lot of different settings, there's multiple musical interludes, which is appropriate for a Tolkien setting, because Tolkien had a lot of music throughout his stories.
I want to teach everybody to sing Down to Goblin Town.
Down, down to Goblin Town.
Another thing I just thought of is like with No Thank You Evil, you can actually defeat a boss defeat a boss by having the kids drum. So that's aimed at younger kids, but I mean, there's nothing stopping you from playing it if you're 100. But it is it's a lot of fun, and I think that could be somewhere where we can integrate it, where this one boss that we made up is only soothed by being a team.
I've talked about a lot because I have my music therapy background and everything. What are some of the benefits of drumming and music in general, physiologically, neurologically? Do you guys recall any of that, or am I putting you two on the spot?
Neurologically, when you are playing music, you actually change the wavelengths of your brain. You have your beta, theta, and alpha states of your brain, and depending on the type of music and the rhythm of the music, you can actually change what phase your mind is in, getting more focused, hypnotic stage, or getting into a more energetic and
more focused or more energized. Yeah, there's different things you can do there, and there's just a lot of integral benefits to music. And when you start to do it in a collaborative way and you get in the flow state that we've talked about many times, get in the zone, some pretty amazing stuff happens. And physiologically it can be a great stress reliever, and just have all those benefits, especially if you do a mellow groove and you kind of just decompress and let all that stress flow out of you, especially after maybe a particularly tense game or something. It can be it just has a lot of those benefits. And that's well researched. There's a lot of brain imaging, bio-neuro monitoring, cortisol level sampling, blood pressure tests. I mean, tons of research about applied music and how it can achieve therapeutic benefits, the power of music. The Music Instinct is a great video, the science and the power of music. I've had you guys view a number of times. Really, really great PBS show on that. So anyway, thank you very much, everybody out there, for your support. Here's let's bring everybody up to date. We've covered a lot, or we've done a lot over this past month.
This is a live broadcast, right?
This is live.
Okay, I just texted my wife to make sure she gets on TV. It's on. We have a number of topics we're going to cover. So first of all, we're going to summarize the past month. I know the most recent significant event is we were at Fan Nexus. That was FANNEX.US. It was a new convention here in Spokane. It was some of the people who originally did Spokon, they had a little falling out because they wanted to go for-profit as opposed to Spokon's non-profit. And they had a little bit different approach to what they want to try. They want to try to really make it big. They spent a lot of money. They brought in all kinds of resources. They have the whole, or a big chunk of the Spokane Arena Convention Center. Yep, the Spokane Convention Center.
They had Walter Koenig there. There's photos of the... It was very funny when we went to take the photo. Walter Koenig, okay, so, so he was here, and when he stood up next to me, he did wait a minute, before you take the shot, he went to make himself taller. He went up on his tippy toes and said, now take the shot. So when you see that shot, you see the people in the background laughing, it's because he just did that. He was being very funny. But it was kind of sad because Fan Nexus, unfortunately, did not have the numbers in attendance that they were hoping for. When the vendors and presenters and everything kind of outnumber the participants, that's not so good. That being said, it was a nice chance to network. We networked with a lot of the other vendors and such, as well as other participants who showed up. Mm-hmm. And we met people from who represent a lot of different organizations, including Geek and Sundry. Still have to follow through with that. And a lot of people were really excited about what we were doing. And the only advantage of it being a slower con was they got to spend a lot more time really asking in-depth questions. We got to spend a lot of time talking to them. And our, not all of our gaming events were attended, but like the No Thank You Evil one and Adventures in Middle-earth had some really good numbers on that. Mm-hmm. I've got a nice photo with John where he's got I think 4 little girls plus 3 other couple adults and
that's 3 adults. Yeah,
that's a cute shot too. They're all looking at it. And was that one was No Thank You Evil, I think.
That was definitely No Thank You Evil. Yeah. My Adventures in Middle-earth were all adult players.
Yeah,
I had people showing up real early on the Sunday morning to get into some Adventures in Middle-earth.
Yeah, they were excited about that.
I roped in a
you brought in a few
family of people to come play Middle-earth. We've worked with.
Now your Star Wars one.
Star Wars, we didn't get anybody because it was kind of early, and But again, on the lower attendance, what still made it a pleasure for me was my wife was able to attend, and when John ran his Adventures in Middle-earth, it was another couple that played where the wife was a new player, just like my wife.
Right.
And I don't think there's many chances at conventions to have 2 noobs at a table really get to work their way into gaming like that.
Yeah.
So that was quite the experience for me.
And the nice thing is, even if it had been busy with being in the trailer, and we've got photos of this, I uploaded a ton of photos both on our Facebook page and our RPGresearch.com page. I just haven't linked every single one. There's so many, but a lot of great photos of people really enjoying. But it created that buffer that if it had been a really busy con, they had a nice little gaming area without all the distractions and noise.
As opposed to being at the official game
which was
room,
a big open area,
right next to the big echoing windows, next to the kids zone with the loud music that people on the other side of the building were complaining about. And you're competing voices for voices. Now it wasn't so bad because it wasn't so well attended, but I've been to cons where you you sit next to the DM or you don't hear the DM.
Yep.
Which means the person on the other end of the table is going, what?
Yep.
Is it my turn yet?
Yep.
So you almost need to hang a bunch of flags. Get the sound
So
buffer.
that was. It was unfortunate for the con, but for us it was a nice, and it was a good chance for Charles to get to experience us setting up and deploying, and really a good chance for him to cut his teeth on what we do at the cons and talking to people and being that RPG advocate. So
Right.
again, unfortunate for the con goers, but for us it was a nice training opportunity and such, and I'm glad you were able to do that. And again, some good networking. Really, we've got a couple of new volunteers signing up because of it. Brad and others will be interviewing November 9th, and some others were queuing up. I've got half a dozen people queued up to interview, so that's not bad.
A couple donations? Like
Well, we put out a little donation
Tip jar.
base, and we got what was it?
$21.
20 what?
$21.
$21, yeah.
2 donations.
But at least that was something.
Yeah, that's more than the last
That was
con.
more than Spokon. Spokon, we didn't get anything, so so that was nice. Let's see. So in our notes, let me pull that back up.
Well,
Yes.
what else have we done? Spark Central?
Spark Central, yep. So we've had another session of Spark Central. Now, I had to go attend a funeral. My stepfather passed away after a coma of about 2 weeks. He passed away after years of fighting diabetes and heart disease and everything. He did pass, so I needed to go down and help my mom with that, and that's Paul Bear. So I wasn't able to run the Spark Central, but luckily, Danielle, John, and Charles stepped up and helped run stuff and keep the activity going. And
I, again, did Eves of Mirkwood. It was
you were continuing where I left off from the last
where you
session.
left off. And the kids who were there really enjoyed it. I did have one wanderer, but it was a lot of good role play from what I could see.
Yeah.
And while we had the one wanderer, we also had some great excitement. After we had set up, there's computers along the wall that the kids use.
Yeah, we're up against not only like Minecraft and stuff, VR.
Yeah.
virtual
They now have new
reality,
VR set up
yes.
there. We're up against that. Jeez.
But once we were set up,
I
went
wanted to get in
let-
that line.
I went to let one of the kids that I recognized from the last time Hawk had ran the game, let him know we were there and set up, and as soon as he realized I tapped him on the shoulder, he threw his headphones off. And was just like, oh my, it's the third Friday!
Nice.
So he was ready to
Nice.
go.
That's awesome. And that will slowly spread and network and such, so that's good.
And then maybe all three of us will have to go because we'll be running,
be running
3
so
or
many
4
tables,
games.
That's Drake sneaking over there, my youngest. Where are you going?
Medicine.
Okay. Yeah, he's fighting a bug, so. And then also Spark Central connected us with somebody else who's running a local program who's asked for us to connect, so we'll be reaching out to him soon, and we'll give you more info next month. But it sounds like some sort of church organization trying to incorporate D&D into their program to help people, and hey, well, let's learn more about that. So Charles is going to be taking that on to connect
Yes.
with them, and so we'll be able to report more on that next month. We're still working on the Hutton Settlement. For those of you not in the area, the Hutton Settlement is basically the ancestors of what used to be orphanages. It's basically an orphanage, but it's kind of a free form. They can leave when they want to, but they sign an agreement, and they have all sorts of great programs. But it's a place to help kids who are in trouble or lost their parents or whatever, and help prepare them to become adults and go out into the real world. And it is a program that so Spokane was made wealthy through mining and forestry and other resources in the late 1800s, early 1900s. And one of the tycoons, if you will, the wife, and he set aside a huge fund and created this settlement out near the valley. This I don't know how many acres, at least 40 acres, if not 160 acres. And they've got horse pastures and stables and all sorts of great activities. People come out there and run activities from all the time. It's kind of a year-round summer camp in a lot of ways. And I came across it because I took the Compassion Focused Therapy workshop out there the other year. A little over a year ago. I think it was a year and a half ago. Through Professor Colts. And in talking to some people who were in the workshop, they also worked there. They were really excited about what we were doing. Well, what I was doing, because nobody else was bored back then, what I was doing with the role-playing game stuff. And so they thought it would be a really great addition. But I wasn't ready to implement at the time. I had too much on my plate because I needed to train other people. And so we're hoping to hook John up with running a program out there. We've made contact, and we're now just trying to nail down a time to talk with them and get that solidified, see if we'll be running a program there.
And I have a nice long-term campaign that should take us a year of physical time to play.
And covers 30 years in Middle-earth time.
Right.
Yeah, which that'll be exciting. And you live close to it, so that way it'll be convenient for you. So hopefully that will. So we should have another update on that for next month. At least it's making. These things take a while. They take a little while to germinate and back and forth, but they usually keep growing. So we'll have an update on how the Hutton settlement goes with John. But as you can see here, now it isn't all just me. Thank goodness. Charles has got stuff going. John's got stuff going. Danielle, you've got some stuff. Talk about what just happened in the TR class at East Washington University. That was awesome. Focus on the good stuff.
Emily got us together with the Isaac Foundation.
Mm-hmm. Talk about that briefly.
The Isaac Foundation is set up for children and families who have autism. So one or more than one of the family members have autism. And the group we were working with was all the siblings of people who have autism, and it's this every other week I think they run, and then every other week we are doing programs currently through my classes. And I ran No Thank You Evil for about 8 people, which is too many people, but
you'll get used to it.
I kept everyone engaged except for a couple, but it was really fast-paced, and I really like No Thank You Evil. You have the most experience with it. I just grabbed it and basically played it one night and then ran it the next day.
The great thing about No Thank You Evil is you can just drop and run. Mm-hmm. We had a situation it was at Spokon, where people came in to want to play No Thank You Evil, and most of them had already played a session with me, so they didn't want to play the same module. They wanted to play the new box that I had just literally got. Okay, let me take the plastic off, and I was able to run it cold from the box, no problem. So
I think it's a great spot for any beginner DM. If you have a group that wants to play a role-playing game, but you don't know anything about it, and you really just want to get your feet wet, I think that's a great tool.
New book coming out called I'm a Guide, because in No Thank You Evil, the Dungeon Master or Storyteller is called The Guide, and I'm a Guide is going to be the guide to be a
which I would like to read. I know. And then
it'll be mandatory reading for you.
Yeah. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to run a more traditional therapeutic recreation activity, because I do get a lot of this. And it's a lot of fun to do this, and I like doing this, but I need to keep other things going. So I'm going to play Slapsy with them next time, and it's going to be a card recognition game. You get a bunch of cards, and one side is like an animal, the other side is like a fruit or something. And it'll be like something that's blue, and you flip the card, or you set the card down face up, slapping it the first person to have theirs down with that image that is blue, or fits in your mouth, or doesn't go into your bed. That's one of them. Yeah. So it's a recognition game, and it's therapeutic implementations for just being a regular game are pretty high, and I really like it.
I get games from Play Monster.
Mm-hmm.
They are 90% children games, with a couple of exceptions. But because I do play testing, I get free games. basically I win the game, I play it, post my views on it, and then they give me a new game as a prize for doing the first one. And so I may have some additional games for you to put in your quiver
Yes.
for your non-role-playing game, but therapeutic, recreational therapeutics appropriate games.
Because it's teaching, it's still education, it's teaching you about like where things go, how to do things, still teaching you how to find a game a little bit too, not necessarily, directly, but you can, this is one game you can buy, I think it was like $7, which was a phenomenal price for, a card game.
And it fits in your pocket.
It doesn't fit in your pocket, it fits in your purse. It's about that long.
I got big
But
pockets.
I mean, you can stick it in your back pocket and stick it out about that far, but
Anyway.
yeah, it's a good substitute, and I think it'll work really well with the Isaac kids because a lot of the implications, yes, the implications for the Isaac group that we're working with is that they might be not necessarily the center of attention or get the things that they need because their parents are spending a lot of time advocating for their siblings. And in a couple of them it's very apparent, but like it's easy to lose them, and I was really impressed with how patient they were even when they weren't engaged. It was really an interesting thing I haven't seen.
Excellent. And you're planning next week or so?
Slapsy. I just
That you already covered that. Yeah. So you got Slapsy. But you were also talking about some other group for role playing. You were talking about some other group you were putting together, weren't you?
I've been playing with my roommates.
Okay, you've been playing
I
with
thought you were,
But you were-
doing something with the school itself.
Oh,
like-
Yeah.
So we're on a rotation for the Gamers Club at school.
There we go. That's it.
And I'm in the rotation. The last time I was in there, I was not feeling so well. So, and I had a call from a doctor that I had to take in the middle, which I usually would never do. But I was running, I think it was another game of 7 people through Eves of Mirkwood. And it went really fast, and it was a lot of fun. We got done in about an hour and a half, which is the fastest I think that thing has ever ran.
Wow.
Yeah. These guys were on it. They were like, we love to role play, and they were like, we're gonna go do this, we're gonna sing the song, we're gonna blow the smoke rings, and then, so my stuff I love to do with Eves of Mirkwood was really emphasized there, and it was great.
Good.
And it was an experience I hadn't had yet because, I mean, they loved the stuff, and it was the first time I had to sing the song because Hawk's always been around. And actually, I had a lot of fun singing it, too.
Good.
Yeah.
It's a fun bit.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to, after you've played it through me, so you don't get spoiled on it, then you can run that through for your gaming group.
Yeah, because
The
I
Mil-
can't
the
run
Wil-
Eves of Mirkwood again.
Adventures in Wilderland. You need to try to do a new game.
Yep.
A new scenario, I should say.
But remember, she has not done role-playing gaming prior to this year.
I'm basically just like
And
a
she's
GM.
already
I don't-
GMing.
the character
So-
side is not me.
So, and it's helped her to have a very narrow focus
Right.
and perfect that. But kudos to you. How much you've taken off. You have done this. It is only, we're only coming up on the 11th month of the year.
Oh, yeah, no.
And you've only been with us since February, March?
March, because it was right after my
Yeah.
birthday.
So it's been about 6-7 months
Yeah.
since you met us. And
Probably 4
when
or
did
5
you run
months.
your first game? That was our retreat.
That was
right?
our first retreat, so
Was
it's
that-
probably been 4 or 5 months. It was right before the
Yeah.
MDA, so
We're going to do more retreats in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here and there.
So I've been DMing for 5 months,
Yeah.
and I've been
you-
playing, being a character really in
Yeah.
depth for
6. Yeah, 'cause the Beirut group
7.
and stuff. And,
Yeah.
Awesome start. Awesome.
Yeah.
And
Thank
you're jumping in these other groups and just taking off with it.
Yeah, I just grabbed No Thank You Evil from John's house the other day and was like, I'm gonna run this with 12
But
kids potentially.
What you've had is guidance from us
Yeah.
as experienced GMs and such to help coach you through it.
Mm-hmm.
This would not be a typical experience for somebody just jumping in on their own.
Well, and another thing I've had experience with that's really helped me is I took a teaching class in college, and we did lesson plans like straight out the book. You opened your book, you read it before you
Yeah, but-
played it, and then you literally read from the book for the thing, and that's exactly how No Thank You Evil.
Well, that's how you learned it, but as far as the techniques you needed to run the games, you needed our coaching
Yeah.
to help you do that
Oh, yeah,
effectively
that.
in a very short time. What would normally take somebody years to be able to handle all these different groups and some challenges along the way, you've been able to ramp up in a very short time.
Thanks.
Most
Yeah.
players don't ever GM.
Yeah, most do not.
Well, and I'm not that very good of a player. I like to GM.
Well, and that is the thing. There are natural GMs and natural players, and they're not always the same people. That is true. I like both. I love to do both, but I keep ending up as the GM. That's just always had it. It isn't just in gaming. It ends up happening in a lot of things, and I don't mean it to, but it happens.
It's that dominant personality thing. I got that too.
No, I don't know. I don't know how much of it's been my height, because people tend to defer to taller people. That's just there's studies on that. I'm 6'7", so used to be 6'8", and so people do. There's a lot of studies that people automatically defer to you if you're taller and such, and they automatically assume you know more or whatever. I'm like, So I remember being very young with much older people, and getting some of that deferment, and I was like, I'm only 13, and I don't know what I'm doing. Why are you asking me to take over?
And you get that
You're
imposter syndrome.
21. What's that? Yeah, then you feel very, like,
You're like,
they're going to find me out.
They're going to figure out that I actually don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but then through gaming was able to build up that confidence and competence and such pretty quickly. Okay, let's see. So, Halloween is tomorrow.
I'm wearing my Nightmare Before Christmas scarf.
Danielle's favorite holiday, and up there among my... I don't know if I have a more favorite holiday than Halloween. I don't know that I do. Probably
I don't.
not.
Halloween's
But this-
different.
Oh, by the way,
Mine's
for
my
tomorrow,
first and
is
second
you may
favorite
dress up or
holiday.
not. It is your choice. It doesn't have to have anything to do, but tomorrow what we're doing at my place is a Cthulhu night, because it's Halloween, and my normal Tuesday group pled for me to do a Cthulhu. So,
And I'm not.
Danielle will be doing her thing. She's got her Halloween party and all that going. John, unfortunately, can't make because he's running a different group.
I will be
Schedule
at
conflict.
Uncle's in the Valley. I will be running Betrayal in Baldur's Gate. It's like Betrayal at House on the Hill.
Which is what I'm going to be playing.
But we will be doing it at in Baldur's Gate, which is the Forgotten Realms. So it'll be a Dungeons and Dragons themed haunt.
What kind of numbers are you expecting?
I'm expecting around 30.
Will there be multiple GMs running multiple tables?
Yes,
Okay.
and this case this will not be a GM.
This isn't
facilitating a
organized
tabletop
play.
game.
This isn't your normal organized
Right,
play.
this is
though.
not
It's
organized play.
special.
We're not going to
one-off.
be. In fact, most people canceled the Wednesday game because I won't be there. I'm going to a wedding, and there's a party that most of the players are going to.
Okay.
But
This is a special one-off, and people are excited.
this is a special one-off holiday event,
Cool.
and
So we're doing it at multiple locations.
yeah, my holiday events
Our
typically.
minions are minioning.
My special events typically run 30 to 120 people, but we're running multiple different types of games simultaneously. This is normally the board game night, so everything will be Halloween themed board games. I'm just specifically running the Betrayal series.
Okay. Cool. Well, we'll be running Cthulhu, and
1920s Call of Cthulhu.
yep, Call of Cthulhu, and it'll be pre-gens. They'll have a bunch to pick from, and Charles is supposed to be there. My normal Beirut group, except for Danielle, will be there. It'll be Jacob, who Jacob's another member of the team. He's just been working a lot lately, so he hasn't been able to attend, but he's still part of the team. So Jacob will be there, Ryan will be there, Heather will be there, Drake will be there, his girlfriend Aaliyah will be joining, his friend Austin will be joining. Austin's on the spectrum. We had some, I think we talked about him at some point, some videos in the past. We introduced him to LARP at Tolkien Moot last year, and then that also was part of maybe it was 2 years ago, the Vice Media thing. They when they were interviewing me about autism and LARP and stuff like that. And Austin has really, he's high functioning, but definitely significant impairment. He took over running the fantasy and gaming group at G-Prep when he was in high school. Really stepped up. I mean, that's a very strongly social activity, and was running gaming regularly. And he was introduced to gaming through my middle son. They were of an age, and then he's now, since my middle son moved to New Hampshire, the youngest son has kind of stepped in, and they're now friends hanging out, and they game all the time. But Austin is really, I just watched him since he was a kid, just from very internal to really opened up. You can definitely tell he's on the spectrum. Doesn't take long to notice that. But he is so polite, and he's really learned to take turns in a conversation, to contribute to the conversation. And I attribute a lot of this to gaming etiquette. He really struggled early on. He still has challenges with so he runs games now, and where he struggles there is he likes to get into the weeds with the detail, which is a common trait for this, and sometimes loses some of the emotionality in his adventures. And I haven't had a chance to coach him on that. I hope to in the future to do so. But I have had him as a player a number of times, as well as watched him in other groups and been able to coach him through, and just he just sucks it up. You give him guidance and he really works at it. And you see dramatic change in a very short time through this gaming modality. So it'll be great to have him on board with Cthulhu, because I have not had him in a horror setting before, so that'll be interesting to see how the dynamics are with that. So looking forward to that tomorrow. That'll be fun. We're normally 6 to 10 on Tuesdays for the game. We'll probably run it till 11 or 12. Might broadcast it live. Probably.
That'd be nice.
Possibly, as long as everybody's on board with that.
I might be watching it.
Yeah. So we might stream that over this channel live to the general public. I don't think we'll do a Patreon only for that. Or, I don't know. Maybe we could. I don't know. It's Halloween. We'll just make
It's a holiday.
It's a holiday.
Give people a bone.
Get them hooked.
So some other topics we discussed in our meetings the last few times is about documentation.
Yes.
What's the acronym?
APIDE.
R.
Yes. What does it stand for? They spoke already. It's your turn, John.
Oh, okay. So it's assessment, plan, implement, evaluate, and document and reassessment.
There you go.
Because,
And
I was
yeah,
going to say,
go,
because
good.
if you don't document it, it didn't happen.
Adventures are never happened.
and it's how you can determine measurable results. So there are other programs out there using role-playing games and other activities, but they don't really, if they minimal documentation or none. They're going with their gut, and their gut tells them this is helping improve the lives of others. And they may very well be, but there's no proof. Like this interview that happened with Men's Health magazine, which I'm still waiting to see if it comes out. They talked about the great things for building camaraderie and friendship and group dynamics and all of that, but they didn't have any theory to draw upon, and they didn't have any documentation to draw upon. And it is a core part of what we do is we create program plans. We do assessments when we can. You know, that varies on the population. We weren't able to do in-depth assessments for a muscular dystrophy camp, but we did some assessments by talking to the different MD members at the monthly groups, talking to the organizers, meeting with some of the people, and assessing what their level of functioning was, what they could handle, couldn't handle, and what our expected outcomes were.
And that was a group assessment as opposed to individual.
There was a little bit of individual as well, but it was overall group, yes. But there was some individual. Well, yeah, remember that. Hold on to that thought. Hold on to that thought. So, and assessments don't always have to be a piece of paper, although I prefer it. what happens is, as I have these dialogues with people, I hurry and write it down. It's not the perfect format, but at least you're capturing something. And so often it was a verbal dialogue, saying what they could do. They would demonstrate to me what they could handle, couldn't handle. I'd hand them an object, see how much they could lift. Oh, okay, we've got a weight limit. Well, then maybe we should make some lances that they strap to their chairs rather than try to make them lift the boppers, things like that. So we're assessing what their level of function would be. We also knew that they were not getting 100% participation in any of the activities at the camp. So I was talking to the camp counselors and getting assessment information on how are your participants participating in all of your activities. And they did not have 100% any activity. We came on board, we had 100% involvement from all of the campers in the activity. We planned for months for this activity. We drilled, we laid out rope out at the park. We did the drum circle planning. We had strangers come join us because they thought that looked like a lot of fun. That was awesome.
If you're watching this, yay! Thank you!
And so we did all that, and I documented, and some people got irritated with my level of documentation when we were starting to break 30 plus pages. We needed that documentation. We needed to all be on the same page and have it laid out, and we found a lot of gotchas. Like, oh, wait a minute, we didn't think about this. Oh, okay, let's fill in that blank. Let's fill in that blank. And in that process of documenting, we were that much more prepared. Then we implemented. We did the program. We had to constantly assess, evaluate, and adjust on the fly for any changes that came up. But really, at least as far as the first day, that went really smoothly. We didn't have to make a whole lot of changes to that. That went, amazingly well.
And with the documentation, the good parts are repeatable.
Right, and what we discovered that we didn't think of, but we have documented now, is that for those who were fatigued because of the MD, they didn't want to stop playing. They couldn't continue the level of activity for the LARP, so they went and joined you at the tabletop game. But then, what we never expected, we expect people would peter out and come to you, but then they went back to the LARP when they recharged. That nobody in all of our conversations and anything did we come up with that. And that's where our implementation feeds back into the research, because you discover these new things. You can theorize all you want, you can plan all you want, but the implementation gives you some really good data. Here's what happened. Here's a bunch of different things that can be worked into the next version of planning. And then when we finished, we went through, I documented, we got lots of photos, we got video, I'd written just reams of information, and then we've been looking back and reassessing. Okay, what worked? What could have worked better? The second day worth of the LARP had some holes in it. I'm confident that if we went back to do it again, we would have a much stronger program for that one. The first day, I think we nailed it. Nailed it.
We also spent about a month longer on that one.
We did. We spent more time, and it showed. It showed. There were more misunderstandings in the second one because we didn't get it as well documented and planned out. It was a little more rushed and such in trying to juggle everything. So that shows it made a difference. That planning phase makes a big difference. I'm a project manager. I've been a project manager for a lot of projects over the years, and that project management really makes a big difference when you get that documentation down. So that documentation is important. And it lets us, over years, aggregate information and share it with you and with the general public so that others can build on what we've done and keep building and keep improving. If everybody's off in their own silo, doing their own thing and not documenting, and just talking about it at cons, it inspires people, but they keep reinventing the wheel and making the same mistakes over and over, and the progress doesn't really, it just keeps up and down, doesn't really go anywhere. And as I go out there and share these programs and make them available on our website, etc. I still need to do that for the MDA one, but I need to clean it up because it's still all over the place. But it's got a lot of great data. And then others can build on it, improve on it even more. And then we'll keep doing it too. We're keeping that relationship with the MDA because that's been a really great relationship. And seeing those kids just light up was awesome.
They're still
all your photos look like.
So, as you were going to say,
I ran into one of the MDA kids at the store, and I was like, "Oh, hi!" And then we had a little 2-second conversation because I needed to run up here, and I was way out in the valley. And
This was last week, right?
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was last week. And he remembered who we were. He wanted to know if we were coming next year. And he was excited. He was one of the ones that was really, really, really excited to be there.
And he was
to
the one who
do
had
it.
the most trouble engaging in any other activities during that
Exactly.
whole week.
He
Yeah.
didn't want to engage with his peers.
Yeah.
And he wanted to do our activity.
And
And
you
he
went around
still
trying to
wants
drag
do
other
our
kids in to
activity.
do it too, to share it with him. So,
Mhm.
because, yeah. So that was awesome that you ran into him, and I hope we keep running into others like that. That'll be great. And the more we do this, the more that will happen.
Do we
I
have
run into
an
the deaf community
invitation
people
for
all the
next
time.
year already? Or
What's that?
do we have an invitation for next year?
Oh, it was already open-ended. It was extended the before we even did the program. We would what they asked for is that if we will offer a training program to their counselors to help them implement as well, so they incorporate it as part of their normal program. They
That
want
makes
us to
sense.
teach them what we know to start adding that to their camp normally. So that's part of why we've been working on our training programs. That's one of the dozen clients that are kind of in the queue. That
Oh, we even had them doing arts and crafts.
Yep, we had them painting shields and all this other. Oh yeah, no, they
It could have easily been
yeah.
a whole day thing.
we could make a week-long camp of all our programs. We totally could. Between all our different programs, we could have a different genre each day. Like today is Gumshoe Day. Today is Cthulhu or Horror Day. You know, today is Middle Earth Day. Today is Sci-Fi Day. Star Wars, whatever. Yeah, I mean, we could.
Doom is actually sleep-in day, so you don't stay up all night and get scared.
We could totally. Do it.
Cthulhu
And
after
maybe
dark.
someday we will. Now, there are places that already do have those kind of camps. That during the summer, they actually are role-playing gaming camps. They tend to be more LARP heavy, but they've got them scattered around the country. There's the role-play workshop in Oakland, which may not be going on much longer. Her health issues are catching up with her again, unfortunately.
Yuck.
There's the Mythic group over in New Jersey. There's a couple other groups on the East Coast. There's a few groups scattered around that there's one in Texas, one in Colorado. They're popping up here and there. So there are summer camps that are role-playing gaming camps and such. And it's a wonderful experience, definitely. I think our skills would be more useful to help those camps get better and help existing camps implement these programs than for us to go through all the requirements to run your own camp. There's all the insurance and liability. Remember they had MDA, had to get all those nurses ready, everything else. There's a lot of overhead.
All the background
And I
checks.
think if we stick with our focus of our specialty and spread that to teach these groups, that's the most effective use of our energy. Just like I'm brain dumping to you guys, we as a group brain dump to them and help. I think that will be the most effective dissemination method.
Even working with them.
Well, of course, working
Yeah.
with them,
Yeah.
yes. But eventually handing it so they can keep running their own programs and watch more programs pop up. And that will raise all boats. Because then more people will go, hey, come teach us. Hey, come teach us. So I think that's the best use of our energy. As much fun as it would be to do our own camp, I think it would be a lot faster and easier if we just helped others to achieve that. And then we go participate. We go play. We go reap what we sow.
What, you mean I'm not just
Awesome.
riling up the
Like,
troops
we're going to go
anymore?
for 5 days of role-playing gaming camp with the kids. All right. And we don't have to facilitate it. We can just play. All right. And that's totally different than a con setting, too. That would be a lot more fun, I think. The cons can be fun, but they can be really draining.
There's all the extra socialization.
Yeah,
and
the summer camp immersion can just be, yeah,
Same
that's a whole
people.
other thing.
You're not getting the con crud from someone.
Well, you still get camp cred. It's still a thing. I've been a camp counselor a few times for Boy Scouts and for Campfire USA and a few others.
somebody always drinks the
You got
unsafe
kids,
water.
and kids are walking petri dishes, so and you're outdoors, so. But it's great. It's something to keep looking at as we keep spreading through this. So other topics. So we have about 10 minutes left. So John, you wanted to cover a couple of topics.
Is it on the list there? Or is it the ones that
You were talking about some of the harassment
Right. Well,
stuff. And then also splat and bounce is something I wanted to ping on as well. But go ahead.
Several of the topics that we'd set up to discuss in our one-on-one podcasts were things like the X card. When things are getting out of control as far as story is concerned, you play the X card, or the No Thank You Evil tag. We were discussing working with different groups, and a lot of these things dealt with triggers, but one of the things that are right up in the news right now is like with Mr. Weinstein and all the president that is being accused of groping people. I'm not talking just the current president, but Bush is apparently having some issues with that. Lots of famous celebrities, but it's also in the role-playing environment at cons, at some of the CEOs of different games, such as Frog God Games. Their CEO is having issues with accusations.
Yeah, and let's be careful not to go too far down some of the politics of some of these issues. But let's focus on specifically the top part you want to talk about.
Right, which was that with all of these accusations and all these things, there has been an environment within role-playing games at conventions and stores of misconduct.
It's part of why we have the RPG trailer.
Yeah.
Having a safe environment, people with disabilities and such, or autism spectrum, so neurological, their neurological differences, and being harassed. You guys, did your family watch Ben X?
No, not yet. We did not
Not
get
yet.
to that
Okay.
one.
Ben X is this Belgian movie, and it's based on a true story. And one of my Belgian clients says it totally parallels his experience with autism in harassment and bullying, and that movie ultimately leads to some really tragic events. It's a painful, it's a difficult show to watch, but it's well worth watching. It is dramatized, and yet he says it accurately depicts what they experience emotionally. There's a lot of bullying, there's a lot of harassment, and so your friendly neighborhood game store isn't always the friendliest environment. We wish it always was, and the better stores will manage that, but some of them they can't manage everything. Yeah, you get clicks, you get everything. And that was part of, besides accessibility and noise and heat and dirtiness and the tables and the seats. I hated when I came down there to set up and there was soda spilled all over the tables and floor, and I had to clean it up to make it a clean environment for my group. The war gamers would come in there and make tons of noise with 40K, things like that. We were talking about that at the con.
Right.
Big open noisy environment, no way to buffer it. The trailer just solves so many of those issues. Mm-hmm. Not the least of which is a nurturing, safe environment where they can take on challenges and we can put them under stress and under pressure, dealing with real life stuff like harassment and prejudice and things like that, but in a controlled environment that we can stop it as needed.
This last year at Comic-Con, Emerald City Comic-Con, I sat on a panel with Adam, I think it was Adam Davis, and teachers, and one disabled individual was on the panel. And he made a statement that I didn't think impactful until I was listening to. He said, I had to rely on my fellow game mates a lot to be able to either enter and exit the building because he had a wheelchair, a full-on electric wheelchair. And then the other thing that he also had to work on is he couldn't always grip or move about the place that he needed to. So he had to put a lot of trust in the people who he was gaming with, and being able to have those environments where you feel like you can trust the individuals around you is huge for these. I mean, even me, I walk into a dirty hole in the whole game room, and I'm probably turning around and walking out.
And I'll share with you, I mean, I've got a lot of wacky big vision ideas that who knows if they'll ever happen. I mean, I have this vision of us creating a whole industry around all of this. I don't know whatever will happen to that scale, but who knows. One of the things is, so many, after moving to Spokane, and it's been a relatively negative experience compared to my other gaming experiences in other parts of the country. It's been mixed, but it's been there was a lot of negativeness to it that surprised me. That seemed like even before I learned about the clickiness, that a lot of the gamers I met initially fit the stereotype of dysfunctional, bad hygiene, poor social skills. They fit the stereotypes of what gamers are accused of being, and yet all the research shoots that down. And all my experiences prior to moving to Spokane shot that down. It was a shock. And then I experienced it in Seattle and in Portland. And I was like, this isn't just Spokane. This is like a Northwest thing. Well, it may be more than that. It might just also be generational. When I had all my experiences with gaming, that was through the 80s and early 90s, and then I worked a lot. And then when I was gaming then, I did far fewer, pickup games with strangers and stuff. It was mostly my old group and such, and it wasn't until 2004 when I moved to Spokane that I started to go out and meet a bunch of new players again. And I had a lot of trouble weeding through a lot of wackadoodles, if you will.
Yeah.
Well, and that was where I slowly, as I started doing did the research, and then said, no, this is weird. It developed my whole gamer floater theory.
Right.
I was encountering all of the people who were kicked out of all the games. These are the ones who were getting rejected, and so they were the first ones to jump up when I put a card up at Merlin's or posted on the internet or whatever. They were the first people to join the groups, and they were the least functional people. And now that I've met I've met hundreds and hundreds of the game community, I see, they're a small percentage of the community. 1,000. We're getting closer to 1,000.
The most visible.
But they're the most visible. They're the most vocal. They stand out the most. They show up everywhere all the time. I had to start saying to my meetups, if you've already been in my group, don't join my group again. I want new players only. That was part of how I weeded out the same people over and over joining my meetups. I set up 12 meetups, and I had the same 6 or 10 people trying to join all of them. And I'm like, no, I want different people, please. So then I ended up with over 100 different people, and I met a much better sample. But the same 6 or 12 people out of 700 plus kept trying to join every single activity that I posted. And these 6 or 12 people were not desired, and a few of them I've been able to help, or at least I did help improve their circumstances, some of them. Some of the others, when I stopped working with them, it looks like over the years they kind of backslid without the coaching, unfortunately. But some definitely had some really marked improvements, and I'm really grateful for that opportunity. But those that are not functioning that well, that are struggling like that, can make the gaming environment at these stores and these conventions and pickup games a very uncomfortable environment for others. It can drive away quote-unquote norms that want to come to the game, and they see these yelling, stinky, disruptive, physical people and go, I don't want anything to do with that. I'll go somewhere else. And they tend to hang out at the stores until they get banned. A number of them get banned from the stores eventually because of their behavior. I had one in my group I eventually had to ban, and found out she'd already been banned from pretty much every gaming, not only every gaming place, a number of restaurants and coffee shops, and it is a sad situation. She has some real struggles. So this is again where the trailer helps create this safety buffer, where we can control the environment. But anyway, my vision is that I hope that as more of you get certified, you get the training necessary, and you pass the rigorous, difficult certification test, that you'll go out to these places, John, as you already do at Uncle's. You've already raised the bar at Uncle's. compared to some of the other environments at other locations. I brought people to watch your games and join your games specifically because I knew I could trust that yours was a relatively safe environment compared to other environments they could have gone to help them overcome their phobias and other challenges. That as more of you go out and you guys train people and so on and so forth, and she tells 3 friends and he tells 2 friends, and the whole hair commercial, shampoo commercial, that these environments get cleaned up and become once again friendly local game store environments. That they'll be part of your training is creating a safe environment. You're facilitating a good environment. That includes optimal experiences like temperature. You'll never get that perfect because some people run hot, some people run cold, but you can still put it in a more of a happy medium and be more aware of it. That it's clean, that it's not filthy.
That's ventilated.
That's ventilated. Well, that people have proper hygiene, and that there's an appropriate way to ask them to leave, and that just perfume covering up is not sufficient. To make these, once again, approachable, fun, safe environments like they used to be. And I hope that as enough people get certified and do this, and that you'll be able to go out and make that difference, to raise that bar. And that'll be good for business for the stores. All these little stores that are going under, and they complain about the number of people who actually have money not coming in. Well, part of it is you kind of let things go downhill. So I hope you guys will be able to help in all these many environments. You, and I say you guys as in the whole future minioning. All of you throughout the world.
Yeah, future Snagas.
Snagas, yes. We've come up with a new thing. Whoever the new person is the Snaga. So Snaga is Orcish for slave. Right. Which has been in one of our adventures and such, Adventures in Middle-earth campaign.
We treat our Snagas well.
We treat our Snagas well. We give them a sock.
One of the things I want to bring up is the difference between the therapeutic role playing and the trailer and what happens in the stores and what happens at the convention is the aftercare, actually discussing what happened and processing it, because a lot of the times in a store, especially at a convention, but sometimes the store after the game people will stick around and talk, but like at a convention you're moving on to the next thing and there's no discussion of how that impacted you, whether or not that was a good or bad thing. And how you deal with what you just
And as we ramp up with you guys, like all of my games, at the end, we took 5 minutes, everybody filled out assessment forms. How was your experience? You fill out a quick questionnaire. Everybody, and people were good about filling them out. Again, I found out that gamers are researchers. Role-playing gamers, especially tabletop role-playing gamers, are awesome for surveys and questionnaires. They love paperwork. Out of over 100 players, like for this one year period I did all those experiments, only two or three complained, and I gave them a packet of paperwork. Assessments, questionnaires, they loved it. They're like, ooh, what's this about? Ooh, what's this about? Well, it makes sense. You're doing paperwork to play the game. Tabletop role-playing is paperwork. So, in hindsight, it kind of makes sense.
It's bookkeeping.
It's bookkeeping.
And I've had people tell me that's why they don't want to play. They're
right. Well, that's
too much paperwork to me.
Right. But that's why we have to moderate that. But it was all kinds of gamers, and they were really fascinated by it's something they never experienced before, so they liked that, and they knew that by giving feedback at the end of each game, I'd act on it. I'd go through it at the end, read through all of them, and go, oh, okay. Yeah, okay, so those sound effects were a little too distracting. Okay, maybe I won't do that through the whole game, I'll just do it at key points. Because I experimented with running constant ambient noises for what it was always appropriate to the environment.
Right.
I had it all queued up.
And ocean sounds.
People found that too distracting running all the time. Running it at key moments they liked. They felt that added to their experience. Running it all the time, it annoyed them. Little things like that. So 1,001 variables, and so we have that RPG optimization section. I think I mentioned it before on the website, just an aggregate of all those notes. But something that we will be doing more with you guys as you guys get ramped up more is as you run these games at different places, we're going to start having you fill those out so you get some practice. And we'll start with just a simple one page, very quick and easy, and just learn the process of that. So you get real, immediate, direct feedback. I mean, we do it at every Tolkien Moot. I have feedback from every Tolkien Moot from day one. 12 years of that.
We
13
start
years?
journaling this
13
Wednesday,
years.
this next Monday's game. We start journaling the games.
Yes, journaling the games will be good. Journaling your experience at the school, that's
Yeah.
critical in TR, is journaling. So, so some neat stuff there. And so finding ways to, from that feedback, make the environment safer, friendlier, more comfortable, etc. And that was part of how I led to the trailer, because I was doing assessments at places and consistently getting, it was too hot, it was too noisy, it was too dirty, I didn't feel safe, I couldn't access this. It was coming up on the questionnaires. And it would usually only be one person each time. But in the aggregate, you start seeing a trend, and that's useful info. I was going to talk about Splat and Bounce, but we're pretty much out of time here because we're at our hour mark. So I can save that for next month. I would say next year. But basically, the Splat and Bounce concept is does a person, when they have a failure, so like Kobayashi Maru,
Right.
do they just splat? That's it. They're done. They can't get back up. Or do they bounce? Do they learn from that? Do they figure out, okay, how can I not repeat the mistakes that led to that happening? How can I learn from it so that next time I get further along? And I've done experiments with splat and bounce, trying to, for those who were splatters as opposed to bouncers, you can tell pretty quickly through a few tests in the game who your splatters and bouncers are. Your bouncers will be resilient and come back quickly. They get knocked out, they come to, they're in the game, and they keep at it, and they go, okay, no, next time I'll make sure I check that for a trap or whatever. The splatters will be like, why didn't anybody back me up? Or why didn't I, they'll be looking for blame, whether they blame themselves and beat themselves up, or if they lash out, whatever it is. They're not as resilient, as resilient personality types and less resilient personality types. So those that are less resilient, I've targeted giving them increasingly difficult situations, but better yet, take a number of them and put them in an impossible no-incident scenario up front, letting them know, right? This is something we've talked about, maybe really formalizing this further. I've done a little experimenting a little bit, but I would love to formalize it more. Basically, the Kobayashi Maru type experiments where we're telling them up front, and we give them a pre-made, it's not a long-term character they've invested a lot,
Right.
you're going to die. Or you cannot succeed. But the question is, how far can you get? You cannot finish this, but the challenge is to get as far as you possibly can. And the only groups that make it further are those who work together collaboratively. If you try to do it on your own, you will make it far less distance than those who worked well as a group. And make that clear up front. This is a no-win situation, but the challenge is to do as well as you can under the increasingly impossible conditions. And that's the challenge, is to see how far you can get. And then when you fail and die, we will talk about it, evaluate it, and then go back and do it again and try to make it further into the adventure. And that's really helping to build that resilient personality. Like, failure is not the end of the world. It is not all over just because you failed at a task.
Failure is always an
What can
option.
you learn far more from failure than you do from successes. If everything goes easy for you, you do not grow and develop as much as when you are challenged, as when you have disappointments and failures. That's when you really get challenged and have to grow as a person. And so incorporating that, that we incorporate in lots of games. That's part of a lot of the games in aspect. But some, I've been noticing, this was a generational thing, and I'm sorry, I'm going over. But there's been a generational thing where I've seen a lot more splats coming in now, in the younger to mid-20s range. A lot more splatters and a lot fewer bouncers. But that's something we can talk about more next month. And I would love for your comments and questions on that as well. for that topic. I think that'd be a good topic to go into more depth next month as well.
And we'll probably go in a little bit about the difference between people who play video games versus tabletop games versus live action role plays. Which ones
Versus card games, which
Versus
are totally different.
which ones tend to splat when they get into a different environment?
Oh, right, because we were going to talk about the Spartan show.
Right.
That's right. That was the other part of it, was the Spartan show. Because I've had some very interesting observations there with the Twitch personalities and such. And this, yeah, that was what triggered that whole conversation, isn't it?
Yep.
So yeah, so lots of good stuff coming. We've already got queued up for next month. If you have questions or topics you want us to address, please post them on our patreon.com/RPG Research or on rpgresearch.com. You can go into our forum section. What?
or beneath the video, if this is on YouTube.
Yeah, I don't ever have time to edit them. We need a person to do that. I no longer have time.
Mm-hmm.
I just put these up raw. I mean, at first it's Patreon only, and then I adjust the levels, and eventually I make them available to the public.
Which is why we need a new Snaga.
Yes, we
Snaga!
need a video editing Snaga.
Are you the
I
next
can do
Snaga?
everything, but the problem is I am doing everything, and now I can't do anything. I have 90 directions, but we're making progress. If you're not already a Patreon supporter, please do swing by patreon.com/RPG Research, where you would get this stream live if you're $25 or more per month. Thank you so much for those generous donations. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
We see you.
If you're at the $10 a month and $5 a month levels, you get early access a week or 2 weeks before the general public. Often that can be months because I'll clicking it down to the lower Patreon levels and then leave it Patreons only. And then it kind of gets scrolled down because of all the other things we do. And then I have to go back periodically and go, oh, this should be public by now, 6 months later. Okay, I always make it public eventually because I have a very open source approach. But when it gets to you, again, manpower, we're volunteers. We're an incorporated nonprofit. Still not a 501c3, but we're working on it. But so being a Patreon supporter means you get this stuff weeks or months before the general public. And there's a lot going on. And again, we're very responsive, so if you post questions, we will answer them here. You can email rpgresearcher@gmail.com. That's rpgresearcher@gmail.com. You can tweet us at rpgresearch. If you want to help with building the next generation of the trailer, so go from seating 3 wheelchairs to 6 wheelchairs or more, donate at gofundme.com/RPG trailer. And you can check out more info on that on rpgtrailer.com. And of course, our YouTube channel is youtube.com/RPG Research. I do think we will be streaming the Cthulhu stream again, assuming everybody says yes tomorrow. I think everybody there will be cool with it. So that'll be youtube.com/RPG Research to watch our live Cthulhu stream.
I will.
I'll probably do the whole candles thing and all of that too. So the lighting might not be the greatest for the video, but that should add to the ambiance. So that should be fun.
Make sure you can hear the screams.
Happy
clearly.
Halloween!
Yes, happy Halloween, whatever it may be. But thank you again for all your support and donations. We really appreciate it. And help spread the word. Get other people, bring your friends. Tell them to help support us as well.
Show them the video.
What's that?
Said show them the video.
Yeah, show
See
them
what
video,
they can-
whatever. You're welcome to do so. But remember, be well, happy gaming, Namarie.
Dream well.